Hello, and thank you so much for purchasing May's subscription box. I look forward to walking you through today's craft, which is going to be a beautiful flower pot, and I hope that you have just as much fun creating it as I did putting the idea together for you. What I'm going to do is actually untie my little layer of ribbon here. Some of them are harder to untie than others. You're more than welcome to cut it. I might use this later in my craft or for another craft. I have one where it's got a nice smooth edge. If your edge isn't smooth, you may just want to trim it to a point where the ends are actually attached. And then I want to attach my ribbon to here. So to do that, the first thing that I'm going to do is anchor it in a certain spot, and I'm just going to put a little line of my glue gun there, and I'm going to cross over it a bit, and on either side of my hot line I'm going to push it right up to the top there. I don't want to burn my fingers, even though I tend to be quite good at that. Now I want to try and make sure that my ribbon stays as close to the top lip as possible up in here. I'm going to put my glue line actually along the top there, right inside, and I'm going to shove my ribbon all the way up to meet that so that it's touching my glue. And I'm just going to keep going around my cup the whole way, putting the glue down in the lip there. And again, I'm just sliding my ribbon down all the way to meet the glue. And I'm pulling it so it's a little bit snug, but no matter what, when I get to the end, it's not going to fit around the bottom, and that's okay. It doesn't need to right now. We'll be able to fix that with our glue. Once I've caught it up to this end here, I'm going to just do a little crossover from where it is, and I'm going to put my line there again, right across it. I'm going to pull it tightly, just give it kind of one nice last snug tight thing, and I'm going to glue it so it's attached to that. And once it's attached to that area there, I am going to give it my snip to cut it off. Perfect. So don't worry again if it's loose at the bottom, it's going to be. That part will be fixed momentarily. So what I'm going to do now is take this area here where it is nice and loose, and I'm actually going to pinch it together or fold it over depending on how you want to do it to make it nice and snug. And in order to do that, I'm going to have to place a little bit of a glue dot here. So I'm going to be very careful. I'm going to put just a tiny dot, and I'm going to push this one as I pull this one over top so as to not burn my fingers. And I'm going to get that as tight as I can. So now it fits nicely around the base of my pot. It's time for me to start gluing my pot. So I'm literally just going to take my pieces of sea glass, and this one came from another project, it's got glue on it already, and start gluing them to the base of my pot. I don't want to go any higher than necessarily my ribbon here, but I want to make sure that they also go to the bottom. Don't go over the lip here or it won't be able to stand on your surface. So make sure that you've lined it up just nicely with this lip, not going over, and glue either all the way up to the ribbon or just to the ribbon's edge. So just take your glue gun and have at her. Loop your way along. You can try and line your pieces up. They don't have to line up. It's fine if you can see some of the pot. So with a row now done around the base, I'm just going to go through and fill in some of the areas where the sea glass didn't piece together as nicely as I had hoped it would, or as I had wanted it to. And I'm just going to do piecemeal odds and ends kind of throughout to try and fit it. Hopefully I've given you guys enough of the right shapes to do it. If not, let me know. I can always see what I can do. So the next thing I'm going to do now then is roll this ribbon up, this white ribbon, because I don't want to glue it down. And I'm going to start adding my next layer of sea glass. So I've got that all nicely down and in place, my two layers, and here it's just coming across off a little bit, so I'm just going to gloopy that back down the back of my pot. So because I don't know where I'm going to put my pot, I don't necessarily want to have this nice area here showing. So what I'm going to do is actually place my seashell there to cover that. And this is where I might use my other piece of hemp and tie a bow. But before I do that, I am going to cover this with some sea glass as well. So in your kit, I have included some white paint and a paintbrush, and this is where, if you would like, you can paint the lip here a nice white, and just this part here, and of course a little bit of the inside white, so that it matches your ribbon, and then this will go in, so it doesn't matter if you can see that or not. You just want to kind of cover that part. So you would just use your paint and cover it. If you're worried about getting your white paint on this part here, you can always cover it with painter's tape, although it shouldn't be too hard if you just take your brush and apply the paint just directly onto the brush. It shouldn't do much splashing, and then just stay right at the edge there as you paint along. And again, I'm just going on the inside because you'll see a little bit of it with the pot, and no other reason than that. If you'd like, you can go over it more than one time just to give it a thicker coat or a more even coat. I'm probably just going to go over mine the one time. The other option that you have, if you do not want to paint it, of course, is to leave it in the natural color, or to use some of your other sea glass to actually go along the top and glue it on to the top. Because I don't like to leave this part here open, I don't know if I'm going to use that as my front or my back of my pot. I'm going to actually make it the front of my pot by gluing the seashell that I've provided on there and actually making a cute little hemp bow, so that that becomes very clearly the front of my piece. When adding the shell, I always again put it on where you want it instead of onto the shell. Take your shell and kind of slide it into place. That way you ensure that you do not burn your fingers, or hopefully don't burn your fingers. And then I'm going to just pre-tie my little bow. I don't need a very long bow, so the first thing that I'm going to do is cut it in half. My cute little bow made, I'm going to just do my last little loop there under my shell, and I'm going to very carefully put my bow and then just trim this one a little bit so that it's more even in size with that one. And there is the cute little flower pot. All of the strings, of course, just go through afterwards and pull them off. If there's any areas where you have too much glue bubbled up, you can roll with your fingers, and quite often it will come off rather nicely. And here is an example of one where there is just one layer along the bottom and a layer of small along the top, and there's a piece of sea glass behind the shell and the bow just at the top, and again this is painted white. Thank you so much for joining me on this week's edition of Mermaid Tears. I hope that you had a wonderful time and got creative creating your flower pot, and may you have an absolutely fabulous day.